Okay, I show it as 5 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Pacific. So I think we should go ahead and get started. First I should introduce myself. I'm Joe Knieven from the Wilmington Public Library in Ohio, and I'll be the moderator for this hour. And I'd like to start by thanking our sponsors, Equinox, our platform sponsor, ECDI, our captioning sponsor, and Kipu, our Hackfest sponsor. And with that housekeeping out of the way, I'd like to introduce Liz Rudloff. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, you got it right.
All right. From Missouri Evergreen, who will be presenting On the Same Page, Standards, Expectations, and Automation and Consortium Catalog Training. And at this point, I then remember I need to stop sharing my screen.
Okay, what do you guys see on my screen? Do you see just the presentation?
Right now we're still seeing the everybody.
Okay, let's see.
There we go. Now we're seeing your screen.
All right, let's see. There we go. All right, are we seeing the slides now?
Now we are.
Awesome. Okay. So welcome everybody. I am Liz Rudloff. I'm from Missouri Evergreen Consortium. I am the consortium cataloger. So basically means that I heard cats. People said that in the chat as a laugh, but that's what I always tell people I do because I kind of wrangle all the catalogers. So this is on the same page, how we do basically the training in Missouri Evergreen. So I'm very proud to be back in the MEC. I was in the MEC for 9 months or so before going to academia and then coming back. So a little bit about Missouri Evergreen. We are a resource sharing consortium. We were founded in 2012 by the first 4 member libraries. And currently there are 70 plus member libraries that's with over 175 branches and service locations. And we are throughout the state of Missouri. So from the Boot Hill up to Kansas City, we're everywhere. And currently we have 4.3 million shared MARC records. MEC is, it really varies. We have libraries that are very tiny and are possibly like 1 branch libraries that serve a population of maybe 1,000 people, all the way up to large multi-system branches with different departments, several branches. So our consortium has decentralized cataloging. So each individual library system is responsible for not only adding their item, but making sure their MARC record is in. So you can imagine the kind of havoc that may or may not create. So when we do share our MARC records. However, everybody can bring them in themselves. Our hierarchy is kind of, we have a cataloging committee in Missouri Evergreen. It's made up of 1 member, of course, and then 7 plus members on top of that, and 1 member being the chair, and then me. And cataloging committee, basically, they recommend the cataloging policy to the executive board, and they man cat help, which is where the catalogers throughout the system can ask questions. So obviously, with that many catalogers, there are some pros and cons, right? So we have a wide range of cataloging knowledge. Some of our members, as I said, come from multi-system branches. They may have whole technical services departments, multiple catalogers. And then on the other hand, we will have branches that maybe have 3 people to the entire staff. So a person is wearing the hat of maybe library director, head of programs, acquisitions, and the cataloger. So varying skill level. And we are continuously growing. So currently, we have 2 migrations in the works. 1 is getting ready to be handed off to support. The second one is going to come on, I believe, next Friday. In 2023, we had 5 migrations. And coming up in 2024, by the end, we're adding another larger consortium from the St. Louis area. It has 9 member libraries. So, that means with continuous growth, everybody coming in, there's MARC records always coming in with migrations, because as the last point says, the variable match rate. So no matter how good the match rate is with migration libraries, it's never 100%. So that means there's some MARC records that are always duplicated. It's just one of those challenges. And these are kind of like working on things we can improve in MEC. So knowing about Missouri Evergreen and how do we even start, right? How do we standardize anything? Well, we first, you have to create your standards. And Missouri Evergreen has had that for a while. They have their documentation. It outlines the MARC record expectations. We have cataloging best practices and policies. Our naming of monographed parts, guidelines for merging. We also training, right? So we have our monthly cataloging meetings. We discuss issues that have come up in Cat Help. We do little quick tutorials possibly. And those meet the second Monday of every month. And then we also have regional trainings. So those are yearly day-long sessions where people come in and we actually get to meet people face to face. So they're from throughout the state, usually pick 5 or 6 locations and travel out and do that. And the itinerary usually, includes any changes we've had to policy, any new policy since we've last met up. And then, it's always very question-based. But even with that, there's with such a wide varying skill level, it's just a lot of people in the catalog. So 2 years ago, the Missouri Evergreen Consortium decided to implement a certification process for catalogers. It includes basic and advanced certification. And what it was, basically lessons and then coursework that would, test their knowledge. It also outlined that catalogers would have to be recertified every 2 years. So basic certification, let's see if I'll. So it was a PDF document is how it started. I call this certification 1.0. This is what came out in 2022. It's one long PDF document with everything kind of one after the other. The same way with the advanced certification. It was one long PDF document. That one was 79 pages. And then they combined that with YouTube video tutorials and directions. And then the expectation was that catalogers would do coursework in the test server and then email responses to the then consortium cataloger, and it would be graded. So at the time, they had broken it up in 2 sections. So basic certification basically covered item level things in the catalog. So very basic to signing in, and then searching, adding items and holdings, changing barcodes, deleting, transferring, and adding monograph parts. Basically all the things that just affected your item within the consortium was considered basic certification. Advanced certification, on the other hand, that was where you're going to get into your MARC editing, merging, importing, overlaying records, deleting whole bibs, and then of course, creating your original catalog records. So certification 1.0, starting out with a very long PDF document. There were pros and cons, obviously. So the positive, the contents was what was covered is still relevant. That is still, those are still the lessons that we teach. Those are still things we do in Evergreen. And we've been working on a permissions project with Jennifer Weston, and our cataloging permissions nicely align with basic and advanced certification levels. And of course, the supplements that were included in the first certification were great, but there could always be more. Catalogers love a crypt sheet. Catalogers love written out directions. So there can always be more of that. The negative, well, a long PDF document is not very user-friendly. It's kind of overwhelming, hard to find things within the document. There was no index, so referencing back if you needed to refresh your memory about something was kind of, a hunt and peck situation. And then of course, we had system upgrades and the system updates, and some of our options move, some of them, disappear, so we get new options, but the menus change. And when you have videos showing people where things are, those obviously are then out of date once the system upgrades. And then of course, the grading from the side where the grading has to be happening, it was labor intensive. So that many email responses, and then those email responses coming in with screenshots that may or may not be labeled in a physical manner, and then trying to sort through them and get everything graded and sent back to the individual cataloger. It was just a lot. And then of course, recertification wasn't even talked about in certification. It was said that yes, we need to recertify every 2 years, but didn't say what that would look like. So it hadn't even been considered yet. So we needed to address what was the expectation for our recertification going to look like. So I started this with the 2.0 with addressing the negatives first. So how can we go about addressing the negatives that we have? So, okay, we have one very long PDF document. How can we divide that? Can we divide that into like littler chunks or lessons, but we still need to maintain the cohesion that we have in the course. So how do we do that? And then of course, you know, the system upgrades. How do we update screenshots and not have to take the whole document down or the whole course down? And then, you know, easily allow for when future upgrades to the system happen. How are we going to integrate those? And then grading, how do we streamline that? That was a want for me when doing this is I'd love some way to streamline this, at least, you know, something that catches the emails or grades part of it manually, I don't know. And then of course, certification. What is certification even going to include? Is it going to be very much like what our basic and advanced certification looks like? Or is recertification going to be slightly different in some way, right? So the answer to all of these was really, we needed a learning management system, unfortunately. So when that was decided, because that would give us really everything we were looking for, then we got into the weeds of how do you even choose an LMS, right? What are the pros and cons of each? They have the price. They have some that are hosted locally. They have some that are not. Are there other things besides the cataloging courses we could use the LMS for? If there's a cost to it, that would, you know, make it better. And then who decides? Who decides which LMS we're going to go with? So our executive director, Steve Potter, went and looked at LMS. We looked at Moodle. It's open source, but then we had the question of who would host it, because Missouri Evergreen does not host the catalog ourselves. And then we have Blackboard, Canvas, and you know, those are a little more expensive, and there's a really high learning curve for those. So who's going to be in there and doing what, and it's going to be complicated. And then of course, there's always others. So what we had decided, or Steve and the executive committee settled on, was Odoo. It's an open source enterprise resource planning and customer relations management software. That's a lot. ERP and CRM for our acronyms, like we love. Basically, this did way more than we needed it to. And it was hosted offsite. It was mostly online, and it really offered the range of application that we needed, but it also offered even more if we decided to expand. This lovely picture, you'll see all the apps of some of the things obviously we aren't going to use. This is really geared towards sales. So you have your sales and contracts and places to sign things. Obviously those weren't apps we were going to be using. But there were things in there that were definitely great for us. The documents, the surveys, making courses. So that's mainly what we've used it for so far. So with the courses, they end up looking a lot like college courses, college-esque, I say, wherein they have multimedia links in them. So you can link out to videos, you can link out to documents, you can link out to PowerPoints, whatever. They also, Odoo also had a built-in test option. So it could grade things automatically. And then there was also an option to, as people went through the course, to add mini quizzes or short answers or things like that. And then of course, bonus, great that it had document storage, a website builder that was really easy, and a branding kit. I had never even seen one except in Canva. So that was interesting. That's great. maybe we'll use that one day. But how do we transition? So we are transitioning at this point from a 70-page PDF document to online. So, you know, this was going to be labor intensive to set up, which we knew going in. However, it's going to be easier in the long run. So, but how do we even do this? So we have to divide the PDF into, you know, bite-sized courses, rewrite step-by-step directions. We have to make all new videos. And then of course, with Odoo, the way it's presented, it has a landing page. So you just create a landing page, and then when you have your courses loaded, you have to, you know, have your surveys and make sure all your links work and material uploads. So I wanted to throw this in because although, you know, Mac decided to go with an LMS, the things that I used to create the documents in the LMS that we will look at were made with things that anyone can use. So for all of my videos, I used Microsoft Clipchamp. It does screen recording, it does voiceovers, it's a free Microsoft app. It's very user-friendly, easy to use. And then for the documents and coursework, I ended up using a combination of Google Docs because they allow for automatic updates. Once you update the Google Doc, it automatically will update in Odoo in our course, and then Google Forms. And that was for submitting part of the coursework. And Google Forms allows for like an image or a document uploader, and it labels them and puts them each into an individual folder. So then on the folder on my end would be like question 3 screenshot, and it would show them all sorted out, better than getting an email with 20 attachments of screenshots. So even without an LMS, there are things that other libraries could be doing and using that we used. So Mac and Odoo, what does certification look like? Okay, well, certification 2.0, and I'm going to buzz through it here in a second, but so we put basic and advanced certification back up online to Odoo, separated out the documents into lessons, and then decided that with recertification, we would basically have just a short quiz and coursework again. So we didn't have the documents re-uploaded there. They could all be accessed in other parts of Odoo if they needed them. So it was going to be less work for recertification. So this is the user side of what Odoo looks like on the screen here. It functions as, you know, most other things do, right? Like you can see I'm signed in. I am just called Consortium Cataloger. You make your own login with an email, you get signed in, and then this is actually the landing page that you go to. It's moevergreenlibraries.odoo.com. And so this is everything we've done for cataloging. So I'll show you in our drop-down menu, we were able to sort everything out. Certification, so if we have brand new libraries that need to be certified, they can go in here and this is where they will get certified. Mac has the rule that there should be one advanced level certified cataloger at each library. And when they come in a migration, they have 6 months in which to do that. So they would come here, they would make their account, and then they could go to basic certification. And of course, because I'm a cataloger and whatever, I like the cats from Library of Congress, so you can all enjoy my cats here. And you click in, and here is what it ends up looking like. So it's very college-esque. It reminds me very much of Canvas. And everything is loaded, and this is what basic looks like. So all of these are broken down, and then here are lessons. For our lessons, we have, you know, logging in and searching, and it breaks it down where it has a individual document and a new video for each one. And then of course, at the end, you have the coursework, which kind of explains what the expectation are and then links out to the Google document so that you can submit your work. So advanced certification, the same thing. You have your advanced certification work, you have your useful documents, introduction, index, cataloging terms and acronyms, keyboard shortcuts. And then as you can see, we have the lessons are broken out the same way. So you have written directions and you have videos for each little tidbit. And then of course, again, the coursework. And I'll go through, I'll show you what recertification looks like, even though it's very similar. So basic certification coursework, and then the quiz. I won't open the quiz just because it will make me take the quiz. So,
Liz, we have a question in chat regarding Odoo. Are you paying $24 per user per month for Odoo, or are you using the quote one app only quote for $0 or something else entirely?
So what we were quoted as it's per user, and their user is considered the person on the back end who is loading it, not the users on the front end. So who's on the back end doing the things in the background? So we decided that it would be myself and the executive director, Steve Potter. We both have logins. So we did 2 users, and I think they ended up doing like a lump sum per year, but yes, they will break it out by month. So it is not the free version, but the cost was not exorbitant either. It was, I believe, I don't know, $500 to $700 a user. So one for Steve and one for I, it couple $1,000, and then we had this system in which to build on. So yes, it's a cost, but comparatively to the other LMS we looked at, it was very reasonable, especially given everything it does and things that we are able to do that we didn't even think we'd be able to do or hadn't even thought of doing, really. So basic certification and advanced certification look the same. So you can see much more user-friendly than the PDF document. And of course, because I'm all about like finding stuff in one place, I also went ahead and added a bunch of cataloging documentation and links that to other trainings. And of course, to get into the protection in this test server. So I will actually open up one of these documents so you can see. I won't open a video because I don't want to hear myself in stereo, but. And this ends up how it's presented. From here, users can read it on the screen, they can print it, whatever they need to do. So it's very user-friendly. It really is like all of the systems that we use, back in college. It looks very similar. So, but how do you measure success on a system like this? Completion rate of classes, because I don't know if all of the catalogers are supposed to be doing this and they're supposed to be completing it and having to be graded. Is the grade or just their completion how we measure success, or is it really the user experience and what else can be done with the platform? And then of course, reflecting on what works and doesn't work. So far we've gotten I'd say mostly, if not all, positive reactions to what the new certification looks like. The few challenges that we ended up being pointed out to us were addressed. There was one with printing, like how you have to open a different pop-up in order to print things. But the fact that Odoo allows for the continuous improvement, wherein I can go and edit a Google Doc and it automatically updates the course files, is just amazing. So I'm a bad speller. Anybody who knows me knows this. When inevitably somebody finds my spelling errors, I can go in and change my spelling errors without having to take the whole certification down and put back up, which is what we were looking at with the PDF. But what should training expectations be? Even with a platform like this and being able to have courses and we have training classes, what should really the expectation be for our catalogers? They vary so often, so far in skill level from, what I consider a professional cataloger down to a novice. What does that expectation look like? And how do we maintain that expectation? And how do we let users have input on what they think it should be? Because it's not all us in the background making all the rules. So are we on the same page? Yes and no. We have all these lovely guidelines for, what MARC records should look like and a MEC record should look like, because our specific rules. But at the same time, is since we are continuously adding new libraries and continuously getting bigger with more and more MARC records, are we going to ever be quote unquote on the same page? That's to be determined. So the second certification, it was actually only just launched in, I believe, the beginning of February. So I had created it in Odoo, and then I released it to the cataloging committee, and catalogers, some of them went through it and tested all the links and looked for spelling mistakes that I'm famous for, and just see how user friendly it was. Then it was released to the greater MEC in February, because this is our recertification year. So recertification is rolling, so it's every 2 years, based on when you got your certification the first time. And so there have been, I believe, 20 people have taken the advanced, and there are several, 2 or 3 that are halfway through, because I can actually monitor in the background how far they have gotten through the coursework, and look at their test grades and everything else. There's about 20 who've made it through the advanced certification, and there's actually way more than I expected people that are going back and doing their advanced certification after having only achieved their basic certification with the old system. So that
Liz,
was.
We have a couple more questions in chat, taking them in order. I'll try to use names here. Britta Dorsey from Evergreen, Indiana asks, we currently use Moodle for basic and advanced cataloging, and I would love to see how others set up their asynchronous courses. Would users outside of Missouri be able to sign up for the course?
Yes, I left it open. So
Ooh, nice.
Yes, so I am very much about, I do not train my catalogers just to be good catalogers in Mac. I train them to be good catalogers, period. That is my training philosophy. So given that, I left it open for other people who would like to poke around. You can sign up for a user and you can go poke around in it. Basically, I mean, you could even take the quiz if you wanted, and I would just see that you are actually not from a Mac library. That's fine. So.
And then there's a couple more quick questions. Elizabeth Davis asks, are you finding it easier to update elements when they change? And then also, do you revoke permissions if staff do not complete recertification?
That is okay. Yes, that is the goal, is to revoke permissions. It's, if they haven't got recertified within the year they're supposed to, and I've been, nudging people as it goes along. But yes, that's basically what happens. If you have to be basic and advanced certified, and then if you do not keep up with your certification, or there's a couple more elements, if we have a rule that you have to go to at least one cataloging meeting every quarter, so we have them every month, so you have to go to at least one every quarter, so that goes into the, or if people are saying MARC records that you've obviously edited or brought in that just look atrocious. I mean, there's certain things that could get your cataloging permissions revoked, but that coming from the committee. But yes, basically that is the intention, so that we all can have a standard for what our MARC records look like. And updating, super easy. I've set it up in Odoo, so in the back I have just linked everything to Google Docs, and I can just go in my Google Docs where everything is made, and I could put in a new screenshot, or I could edit my spelling, which I've done way too many times, and it immediately updates it in Odoo. Nobody on the Odoo side, even if they're in it, notices the change. It just changes. It just refreshes. Any more questions?
Had to find my unmute button again. There was another. Elizabeth Davis asks, we use notes in the staff account to keep track of training. Do you use something similar?
What I do is, on the back end, we have running a Google Sheet, and anybody who has gotten certified in any way, whether it's advanced or basic or recertified, is kept track there. It has the dates that they completed their certification, and then it also has their username, so that I know who's who in there, because with 70+ libraries, there's a lot of catalogers in there. And that's what we use.
And then Beth Willis asks, are your monthly meetings actual trainings or more for discussion and sharing of ideas, or both?
A little bit of both. So our monthly meetings, we talk about obviously what's coming up, anything that's changed, housekeeping basically is what I call it. And then of course there are a couple sections there. There's one place where I've been going and doing Mark 101, where I've been going and individually talking about a mark field. So this month we're going to talk about the 100, or this month we're going to talk about the 245. And then if anything has been brought up in Cat Help, that's a place where we will do like a little bit of training. It's because, if one person has this question out of 70 libraries, they're not going to be the only person. So some of the questions are addressed then in the meeting and shared to everyone, what it is and how you do things in the catalog specifically. We beat parts to death a lot. Okay, so I just got to my question slide. So basically, I would recommend, please go in, if you would like to look at it, please sign up for an account in Odoo. It is open. And I did that on purpose in case anybody outside of MEC wanted to look at it. Yes, they are MEC focused documents in training. So, some of the things will not apply, like how we name our parts specifically, or we require MEC catalogers to sign their records when they edit or overlay. So some things will not apply, but there are other things that, yes, please go in and poke around, like how to break down a mark record. That's really going to, be used by anybody. There's also crib sheets available that are in the advanced certification. So I, really encourage anyone to go in, look around, see how we have been able to herd our cats a little bit and see how you could use the things we've used, maybe not Odoo, but maybe Google Docs or, maybe Google Forms, and, use your training and how it could help your training.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm probably a basic cataloger at best, but I'm really looking forward to logging in and poking around and seeing if I can, if I remember as much as I think I remember.
Yes, and
And
basic covers it covers such a wide variety in cataloging. It covers everything from like logging in and searching, because searching is a catalog function also. If we can't find the mark record we need to match to, that, and then all the way to original cataloging. So this is all covered in there.
and then back in the chat, Kate Coleman has a question. Can you describe the quiz a bit and how it's different from the coursework and how it works in Odoo?
Okay, so the coursework is it is screenshots as you are doing things you would actually be doing while you're in the catalog. So for example, if you are doing a merge, and the coursework will describe how to do it, I will actually click in and show you. So advanced certification, you would just join the course. And we'll take a look at the coursework. This is what it looks like. So on this one, merging mark records, locate 2 or more bibliographic records. What are the TCNs? Add these records to a bucket. And then it talks about using the snipping tool and what you will be uploading then into the Google form. So this one, they have the snipping tools that they use to take a screenshot of the basket they're going to put their records in, the new bucket. And then of course, at the very end, they use the snipping tool to take a screenshot of what the final record looks like after they've merged. And so in that, I'm expecting, to find the things MEC requires, like how we sign our records, that they have edited the record. Now that's going to be your coursework. And it's kind of, so this one, we've editing, we have merging, importing, overlaying, deleting. And then of course we have original, book, and other. The quizzes are, they're much more exact. They are graded by the system in Odoo, like the answers are imported. And so it can't be open-ended like this. Like it can't have a screenshot. So it's going to ask things, anything from, what is your OCLC symbol? Or are your OCLC symbol and your library code the same? Because these are things that people get confused. And then of course, there's a picture of a MARC record and it says, oh, hey, look at your fixed fields and the yellow highlighted part. What is this? So I'm gonna assume we don't have very many people from Missouri Evergreen on here. So I will open the quiz. I mean, let's see. And the quiz, for recertification, the quiz is the hardest part. People are always shocked by that, but it's because, you know, when you're cataloging, there's certain things we require. However, we also have cataloger's judgment, where, you know, how some things are right, but some things can also be massaged. So if you don't do an enhanced 505, what does that look like? Whether you do an enhanced 505, but the quiz is very exact. So let's see if it'll let me in. Okay, there's the cats again. Start survey. So the basic recertification, it has 15 questions. The advanced has 20, so there's slightly more. And so things like this, even policy, that, you know, we are beating in that people remember these things. So how, minimum, how often must a cataloging representative attend the monthly cataloging meetings? And I told you guys this, you know, it's quarterly. So anything from like basic policy to, yeah, does Missouri Evergreen use RDA? Things like that. And then of course on the advanced, you get more into questions that are about authority records, like look at this authority 650. Is this a correct 650? Is this a correct 655? And that requires then the user to go out and actually look, which this is all open book. That is what is encouraged. You don't catalog without an open book. So we always tell people, do it as if you're sitting down at your desk creating a catalog record and you see this 650 in a record. Just go out and search, is this the correct one? Yes or no? So I would say that the quiz and the coursework are different, but they're complementary. But they're definitely not the same. So I'm going to stop share unless I can direct you guys to something else. So automating cataloging in Missouri Evergreen, I wouldn't say it's completely automated. It can't ever be completely automated because of how cataloging just is. But it has really helped. I think our catalogers have really, besides just really liking the Odoo platform better, it's been better for them to learn, you know, if some people want to use the videos, some people, you know, really just want to use the written directions, and they're encouraged to print things out and reference back. And having those things that they can reference back then when they're doing their actual cataloging at their library has been really helpful.
Yeah, it looks like a great alternative to a 60+ page PDF document.
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
see where it would be a lot more enjoyable for them, in addition to being much easier for you all to update and so on.
Yes, you know, besides being able to getting to click buttons that keeps you engaged, it's just a lot less overwhelming. A 9-page PDF document is one, hopefully your computer can load that pretty fast and download it. But then losing your place, how do you mark your place in there? Because when I first started at MEC, that certification already existed. It was made by my predecessor and I took it. And so I got to experience firsthand what it was like. And so it had some great points, you know, like the succinctness to it, but it definitely needed, you know, some love and to make it more user-friendly in general.
So a couple more questions from chat. Apologies if this was already said, but are the courses hosted by Odoo? So there's no updates / theme upgrades, etc.
Yes, it's all hosted by Odoo. This is an open source, you know, whatever they call it, ERP, CMS, whatever. I call it an LMS, a learning management system. It is open source and you can host it yourself. However, MEC does not. We don't even host our own catalog. So we opted to have it hosted by Odoo.
And then another question, how long are the meetings and how many did you say are required? I recall that you said quarterly, so
They're
4 per
quarterly.
year.
Yes. They happen every single month. At the meeting, we try to keep them right around an hour, depending. It could go over a little bit. It could be a short meeting. It kind of depends what's on the agenda. But if anything else, our monthly meetings, even if we don't get a quick lesson in on something, it's always nice to touch base and see the catalogers in person, because we are from all over the state, and just kind of keep track of everybody, make sure nobody's having any problems. Although we do have Cat Help, which is our listserv that they can email. It is still nice to see them in person and know that they're getting this information firsthand.
All righty. Yeah, I agree. I think it's good for catalogers to get together at least a couple times a year face to face, if for no other reason than because it's just easier when you're talking over, say, little tedious issues if you're all in the same room.
Yes, absolutely. MEC has a users conference, and that is something that Odoo unexpectedly helped with, because they have a events manager. You can create events on there. So for our regional cataloging trainings, you can actually sign up on Odoo. And so I get a class roster then, and I can email everybody out and say, hey, reminder, I'm supposed to see these however many people at Poplar Bluff coming up. And then for the MEC users conference, they were able to manage, tickets, because they wanted to know who was coming in person and online. So there's been some unexpected things Odoo does also that have been fantastic. You can also schedule, you can set it to a calendar and schedule meetings. So if you have somebody who has a cataloging question, it's hey, you want to set up a training Zoom with Liz? There's a button for that. So it has a lot of features that are really great.
Yeah, Charles Wiggins just commented, we're a brand new Evergreen ILS group and we need to build out all this sort of thing. This has been very helpful. And I have to admit, in addition to cataloging training testing, it seems like there's a whole host of things that folks could use this for. Almost feels like the sky's the limit.
It really is. Our circulation committee has also, become interested, and they're oh, what could we put on there? We have a new a revamped onboarding committee where it's oh, how can they use that for libraries that have had the brain drain and they need all this documentation? Where can they go to find all this information? We have a website, but this is just so much more user friendly and easy to use, and it looks great. It operates great, and it cuts down on having to reload all those documents when there are already 500 other places.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for the presentation. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Thank you all for coming. If you want to email me separately and ask me questions about Odoo, please feel free. And I look forward to seeing you in the backside of Odoo, signing up and poking around. Thank you, Joe.
And lots of thanks. Oh, thank you. And it occurs to me that we're at the end of the track day.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget what I'm supposed to do at the end of the day. I do remember that I'm not supposed to end the meeting for all during the day, at least.
Joe, I think Gina will probably pop in here and take it from you if I'm not mistaken.
I figured I could
what's
just
happening.
hang around until Gina told me what to do. So
Joe, I kind of looked at all the documentation and I didn't see anything specific about this, but I know that track 2 is probably done for the day. They're going to use
Okay.
track 1 for
Or
the for the meet and greet or whatever. So I would imagine it's not going to wreck anything if you just left. if we just
if we just shut it down.
Shut it down.
Well, I can give it a second in case Gina did have something specific she wanted us to do.
Or we could just complain more about parts.
Complete set, capital C, capital S. Also, we have complete set, and it was brought to our attention that people were using complete set, but even if they had like a missing disc. And so we recently had to address that, where that's not a complete set if you're missing disc 4. You need to go in and part that out, or weed it. What a thought. But
there's an idea.
Yeah.
Or replace it.
Yeah.
I mean, I lean towards replacing, but especially if it's so popular that you're losing parts. Yeah, sometimes you can't. Such a frustrating part of the whole thing too. Especially since from the standpoint of a cataloger, unless you're covering a desk shift, you won't necessarily know that a part's missing. Like people need to tell their catalogers that there are parts missing and to update the item in the catalog too, which
and you know, that's something that like probably doesn't even occur to circulation. Like they know that, but like then, oh yeah, that's something we should, because I can't update that. So.
Yeah, 25 years ago, that would not have been come up in my mind. I would have written something on the case and been like, it's good. There we go. You can see the thumbs up now.
Carol was talking about somebody made a quiz over your parts. I immediately thought of, if I put a parts quiz in Odoo, I think someone would track me down, even though I work remotely and all the catalogers are all over. Someone would find me if I made something specifically just all parts. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 questions in the quiz about parts, but no.
Well, I mean, this isn't a huge, long quiz. Let me just try and find it. But yes, one of my staff did create that, and I think she's gone already, but do you know your parts quiz? I think there's like 15 questions, and you know, some of them are very basic, you know, true, false. Some of them show the mark record. So, you know, people are going to panic just about mark because, of course, we have a lot of very small libraries and they don't catalog, and so that's scary. But also examples of, okay, so is this part right? Is this part right? Are any of these parts right?
I mean,
but
I would
that's
consider
just
making a parts quiz, but I think they really would beat me.
Yeah, well, this is just a Google Doc, but I have already bookmarked your Odoo page and will be sneaking around in there.
Liz, don't hate me, but I kind of like Carol's like a small parts quiz.
Oh, I know. I'm not saying it's not a good idea. I'm just saying that they would come with torches.
Yes.
That's a quiz like in a course based completely on authorities has more than once crossed my mind. That would be really helpful.
Yeah, and this one was just more of, I think, a general thing. So it would be part of the initial training I mentioned in my last one. But one of the things that we're looking at doing for kind of this certification that we're planning is to allow certain library users to be able to merge or edit or delete parts, not from the item records, but just in the monograph parts tab. And I know there's at least one library staff person who probably spends more time writing emails to tell us exact parts are incorrect and missing and such, and they could just, merge them themselves.
Yeah, and that would be considered like a basic permission in ours, and covered under basic is adding parts, combining parts. I don't know if they're allowed to delete them. That's something else.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember, but yeah.
Cert people would make sense to be able to touch parts, because I mean they see them more often than the cataloger does. Cataloger maybe sees them once or twice if they're wrong.
Well, yeah, no, I don't think we would do that just in general, but we're going to test, I think, with bibliographic committee members who are interested in doing the certification. And there's a couple of very large libraries, of course. And like I said, there's this one person who I would absolutely trust with parts.
All right, Joe, thank you again. I'm going to get out of here.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Hey,
All right.
thank you for the presentation. Take care.
Thank you.